My name's Deveney. I'm based in Gourock and I do portrait work. About 3 years ago I found myself with time on my hands that I never had before. I'd always worked long hours and weekends and so I never really had any time. But I was forced to quit work through illness, and when I was recovering and getting my strength back, I had lots of time to fill, and I loved drawing as a boy. I remember really spending a lot of time drawing. So I really started through, I had watched Portrait Artist of the Year, which I've watched every year since it started. It's been on about, I think, 8 years now. And every time I watched it, I noticed that some of the artists seem to nail a likeness pretty much right away, even in the preparatory sketches or just whatever medium they were working in. And as they continued, they would perhaps lose the likeness and have to work to get it back. Some of them got it right away and kept it. Others couldn't even get it in the finished result, and it just seemed to be, it was a really interesting thing every single time. So I just thought, would I be able to? You know, and I noticed a lot of them were using grids, which I thought was interesting. So just to see if I could, I took a selfie, and in order to make it a bit more interesting, I sort of stood half in a doorway, put one light off, one light on, just to make it a little more, you know. Tried it in charcoal, and it was not bad, it was okay, you know, and I thought, I can work at this, and at that point it was just a time killer. I had no ambitions for it, it was really just something to do, and I remembered loving drawing so much. So I worked at it and was taking pictures of my sons and just sharpening up, and I did that for months really. And I drew a family member portrait, and I was giving them out as gifts at that point. Because I knew they were okay, you know, they were good enough to give. But I hadn't thought about you know, starting a business or anything like that. It was just, I hadn't thought about it. So I gave a family member a portrait, and he said, why aren't you making, you know, why aren't you, he said, if I could do that, I would have a website, I would print business cards, I would, you know, draw a cat, a dog, and get them out there because people will want pets done. He said, you really should, but I didn't because I didn't have the confidence at that point. But eventually, people were asking, how much do you charge, you know? And I sort of had no idea how much to charge, I had no idea. So I looked at artists' websites, and I looked at their pricing, and I had a general feel for what they were doing, whether it was colour, you know, monochrome, whether there was backgrounds involved and this and that. And I just came up with what I thought was reasonable at the time. And this family member arranged a commission, and I did it, and it went really well, and it kind of went from there. When I was drawing when I was much younger, it was entirely different. I was about, I think I was about 12 or 13, and I got a book, and that's what started it all really. It was a book of Alien, the film Alien, and it was full of concept art, and that was what got me into it. I just saw these things and I wanted to draw them, and I was ages doing that. I just really remember those artists in that book. Really, they were the first artists' names that I learned. Ron Cobb, genius. Chris Foss, Jean Giraud, the French, he was known as Mebius. Really great French, a surrealist concept art. And also the Swiss Hans Giger, who was responsible for sort of designs of the environments and so on in the film. So that was his book, it really did it. And as soon as I saw them, I knew how to copy them. And I had nowhere near the talent or imagination to do it myself, but I could certainly copy it. So I knew years later that I could draw to a certain extent, I could copy what was in front of me. As long as it was a good reference, I could do it. And sometimes when I'm doing portraiture, the sort of process is that someone will contact me and ask if I can do it, and then they'll send me the photographs. And sometimes the photographs are old Polaroids, and there's not a great deal of definition there, and that's more of a challenge. But if it's a good sharp picture, well lit, then I'll grid it and draw it. And the principle's the same from what I was doing when I was a boy. It's just a question of kind of what's in front of you, and all I worry about is value, darks and lights, because I don't really, I don't do human beings in colour yet. I think I'll perhaps progress to that, because I do use colour for pets. I get a lot of commissions now for dogs and cats, and I really enjoy using colour, but I don't have the confidence yet for skin tones. But I'll get there in the end, I think. No training or anything like that. There's great instructional videos on YouTube, and I would recommend them to anybody. Stan Prokopenko is a name that really sticks out. Terrific tutorials and stuff like that. And there are things you can learn. It's not, I don't think it's necessarily a talent. You're lucky if you have the talent, but if you don't, as far as I'm concerned, it's not the end of the story. You can learn processes, you can learn techniques. Those that have talent, just flows from their pencil, and it's a joy to watch. But I think that puts a lot of people off, perhaps dipping their toe in the water and starting because they feel, I can't draw, But it's really not necessarily the case, I don't think. It's never too late, Don't let anybody tell you you can't do it. Don't be afraid, you have nothing to lose. It's comparatively cheap in terms of inexpensive. It's calming like nothing else. I would say it's excellent for mental health. It's impossible to be stressed out or anxious when you're sitting drawing. That's my experience of it anyway. It slows you down and makes you focus on what you're doing like nothing. Only in the same way that reading a novel slows you down and makes you focus. And it's great for that, and it's great for mental health, I would say. So the benefits are there to be seen, and as I say, it's inexpensive, and it's a great thing to get into. I think when it's going well and it comes together, you can start seeing the person looking at you if you've got it right. And the handing over to the person's always lovely. I'm not always there for that, to see their reaction, but the feedback I get is always really positive, and it's very gratifying to do something, and it's a privilege that it's going to be hanging on a person's wall. I never lose sight of that. I never sort of forget that it's going to be a gift that's loved, hopefully, and whether it's the commission's for the person himself or they're gifting it to someone else, I generally get feedback and it's positive. So that's lovely. So when it's going well. When you see a portrait, not one of mine, I mean someone, a real artist. My wife and I were in Edinburgh a couple of weeks ago and we went to the portrait gallery. The stuff in there shows you what can be done by people who really know what they're doing, and it inspires you to go back home and try even harder, because I don't compare myself to others, because I would go crazy and I would stop. I only compare myself to my last drawing and try and top myself, as it were. But when we were through in Edinburgh, we saw one, and it was Alan Ramsey, a Scottish artist, 18th century artist, drew his young wife painted her, and it was absolutely incredible. I stood a couple of feet from it, and she's looking you right in the eye, and it's nearly, I think it was 1739 it was painted. Centuries later, she still stares right at you, and he sort of immortalised her. It's amazing. So when it's done right, it's something really special about it, I think. Yeah. Inverclyde's great for things to draw, just on a simple level, apart from the forums that you can join, which are really helpful. When I first went and sort of registered as a business, the girl had said to go on social media. I wasn't on Facebook or anything at the time. I had no kind of reason to be on. But she said it was great for getting the work out there, and it has proved to be. Most of my commissions is through that. But some of the forums that you can join, Portrait Artists UK is a particularly good one. Something like 6,000 members or something. The Graphite Society is very good. These aren't necessarily local, but they're very encouraging and friendly, and they're good to. I would recommend anyone goes on those. But even walking in Inverclyde, taking photographs when I'm out with my wife or something, we'll take a photograph of, if we're up a Tower Hill, the tower itself and the sort of view behind it. I've drew that a few times, and that always sells. People love local views. There's an amazing castle in Port Glasgow, New York Castle, which, if you catch it in the right light, looks really gothic and cool, and it makes a great drawing. Wee Annie down in Kempock Street, people love that. I've drawn her a couple of times and sold, because I'm lucky enough that the Pirate and Bluebell in Gourock, great wee shop that sells a lot of local artists. In between commissions, I'll draw a view or something quirky and take it down to the Pirate, and they were nice enough to sort of take me on, so I can sell some stuff through the Pirate and Bluebell as well. So I'll draw little views, and so Inverclyde's great that way. It's Lyle Hill's a beautiful view, so it's great to walk around, take pictures, draw them, and hopefully somebody will get them through the Pirate. I like it all, I really do. I enjoy the landscapes because it's a nice break from portraiture, which is the majority of what I do. And I'm lucky enough to be constantly busy. I really am. I know I'm lucky because I've always got 2 or 3 commissions ahead. And if someone has a particular date they need something done for, I'll shuffle it around in order to make sure they get it in time. In general, people just say whenever you can. But if ever I have a gap, I'll squeeze in a little something for the Pirate and Bluebell, and I really enjoy that because it's a nice change, and it lets me work in colour as well. I enjoy that. I enjoy the change. I drew a cat recently for, there was a commission, and it was what you would probably maybe call a memorial piece. It was the cat passed away. And it was a good photograph though, and I did it in polychromos pencils, which is what I use for colour. And it was good. I thought it was good. I thought it was the best thing I've ever done, probably. And it was well received. I use polychromos pencils because I wouldn't trust myself to mix colours. I think that's sort of art for grown-ups, is painting in oils and all that. I've always felt that. I wouldn't know how to mix burnt umber or something like that. I just wouldn't know what to put together, but polychromos pencils have got a great range. There's others out there. The Conte Paris, the pastels are terrific as well, and I see a lot of art on Twitter, people using pastels, and it's absolutely immaculate. Polychromos sharpen a little better, and if you use the right paper, pastel mat is particularly good, which is very toothy and grainy, almost like a smooth sandpaper, and you can layer colour on layer, colour on colour, and come up with different shades. But the advantage of polychromos is every time you pick up phthalo green, it's phthalo green. You don't have to mix and stuff like that, which is faster and better. So Yeah, I think the cat was probably the best. In terms of black and white portraits, I don't really have a favourite. I just, as I say, try and beat my last drawing every time, as it were. And I take everyone really seriously. I think I'd like to go into colour for people. I'd like to, and I will at some point, because going back to the polychromos, they do have skin that there's, you know, I would be able to find the right skin tone by blending them. Take much longer. And I have to say, personally, I prefer a monochrome, a black and white portrait of the human face. I just think somehow it hits you a little better. And I find it much easier because, as I say, all you have to worry about is value. Is this dark enough? Is this light enough? I would never trust myself to draw freehand, as it were. I grid every single time because I know for a fact that I would get it wrong. There's no question about that. You can draw a perfect eye and render a perfect eye, but if it's too low in the face or too far away from the other, and we all of us know the human face really well. We've looked at it our whole lives. So anyone looking at a face that's slightly out, it sticks out a mile. So I grid with small grids in order to get it even more accurate. I've noticed on going back to Portrait Artist of the Year, they use grids, but they're very, very good because they use grids, perhaps each grid's an inch or 2 inches square. Well, to my mind, that leaves a lot of margin for error. My grid is a centimetre square. I really grid quite, and then I draw my diagonals in for even more accuracy. So it's not I'm not bringing an artistic talent to it. I'm coming at it as a joiner almost, because I spent 30 years as a joiner measuring to the millimetre. So I bring that to measure between the pupils and stuff like that. So I draw a very light grid in, grid the photograph, and then get all my basic proportions in place, and then go in and put the values in the hair and so on. But I know at the end of the day, because I've followed the grid very carefully, the face is going to be right on the nose, and it'll be a decent likeness. But I've got so much respect for someone who sits back from the actual sitter, not a photograph, but the actual sitter, and measures like this, like the old masters used to do. Having said that, some of the old masters used grids as well. I think Vermeer used grids for his floor tiles and so on, I read somewhere. So it's certainly an ancient method. I don't regard it as cheating, but it lets me know that the face is as accurate as I can possibly make it. You know.